Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Bits video. I have a bunch of my friends on today, and all of us are EV campers. We have, trailers. Some of us camp out of our vehicles. We have a big trip planned in a couple months. We're doing a whole, cross-country road trip with all of our setups. There's a huge crew of just passionate EV, campers and travelers and towers. And I wanted to get us all on the call just to describe, what your guys' setups are, and what do you guys like, dislike, favorite thing, least favorite thing? Like what makes EV towing so different from the typical diesel or gas towing that everyone can do, and why we like it so much. So I'm Tom. You guys know me. I have a Lightning with my Keystone Coleman 13R, a little guy, and I'll throw that up on the screen here. Here we go. So this is my setup here. I just have a little guy. It's just me. It's not anything big, but make no mistake, this truck can tow a lot. It's definitely overpowered for this little guy. I think a Model Y can pull this. It's like 2,500 pounds. I've camped, in Daytona with it. I've gone a couple places, watched some SpaceX launches from Cape Canaveral in it, Jetty Park. Super cool. I love this setup. I love the truck, the camper, but I want to get more into everyone else's first. So let's go through the list, and let's start with Alan, because you're highest on my screen.
Yeah, I'm Alan. I'm sure he's going to put it up here, but I have a Ford Lightning Flash I pull a roughly 32-foot camper. It weighs around 8,000 pounds loaded. And yeah, we took this all over last year. I think we towed about 4,000 miles. Our biggest trip was about 2,100 miles from Ohio up to Bar Harbor, Maine, down to New York City and back. That was a crew of 5 in the truck and in the camper, and both had plenty of room for everything. I know you mentioned kind of what we love about it. Electric trucks just have unlimited power. A lot of people say most of them tow more like a 3/4 ton than a half ton.
Yep.
There were several times we were in the East Coast going up and down the steep hills. And you just saw these gas trucks pulling campers screaming, and I'd be going by them, no struggle in the world, a little smirk on the face. But obviously the downside being range. I did have, there's quite a few charging stops, and we did have a couple stops where we had issues. And we had a couple times where we were doing a lot of charges in one day. We were running up against some thermal limits, which I think Ford has actually just pushed an update that's gonna make it so that those thermal limits aren't hit as easily. They upped the threshold, which could save a ton of time. And I really wish I had that last summer, but I'm excited to test it this summer.
For sure. Same here. Well, awesome. Let's go to Austin now. You have a pretty neat setup. Let me make sure I'm going the right way. There we go.
That's right. I'm Austin. I'm a data nerd, and this is my Model Y with our little tent attached to the back. So we do not tow anything. This folds up and then just goes in the trunk, which is also where we sleep. So we go in the side of that tent there, and we keep all our stuff there during the day at just RV parks, and we leave the tent behind. But at night, the trunk opens inside the tent. So we have a fully enclosed space where we can change, get dressed, get ready for the day, all that stuff, and not be subject to the cold or whatever might be outside. And then there's enough space in the back of a Model Y that I'm 6'2", and we can put the seats down and then put the front seats up, and I'm comfortable. I can stretch out. We've gone through a couple different iterations on how to get super comfortable. Turns out the seats don't fold quite flat. They're like this. And so you end up sliding down just a little bit overnight. So I got some plywood and cut a little platform basically. And then we have a frame of 2x4s that are stood up on their side that the platform sits on top of at the trunk part. And that creates a perfectly level surface that we can put our mattress on top of. It's just like a $200 Amazon Model Y Air mattress. And it's really comfortable, to be honest. You can still get AC. You can see we're plugged in to the NEMA 1450 outlet there. So this works really well for us. The tent is like $500, and it's the most expensive part of this. and it allows us to travel pretty easily without worrying about towing capacity or anything. It might be a little bit ghetto compared to a proper Airstream or trailer or some of these other setups, but it works for us, and I think it just showcases how capable the Model Y is and how like Tesla camping and car camping in an EV can be really nice because of things like camp mode.
Heck yeah, I love that stuff. And we even have some other people within Spec who camp out of their Rivians. I believe Scott camps out of her R1S a ton. I should do it out of my R1S. It's so spacious in there. Compared to if the Y is spacious, just imagine a full size SUV is like a mansion, I bet. But that's a super cool setup. Let's go over to Eric next. Let me throw up your Airstream really quick. Here we go. And the Rivian.
Hey. Austin might think his setup's ghetto, but he has the best range out of all of us. That's
true. Literally, like orders of magnitude higher.
Yeah, exactly. No impact at all, right? Hey, I'm Eric. So this is kind of our setup, right? This is our third Rivian. It's a 2025 R1T Tri Max. This truck's about 400 miles of range in eco mode without a trailer. We usually get around 180 with a 23-foot Airstream. So not quite as big as Alan's and probably a little bit more aerodynamic, I'd say. So a little less space, no slide outs or anything. We love this setup. It's usually just my wife and I and one of the dogs that goes on trips. So yeah, this is it's kind of our setup. So what do we love about EV towing? Alan mentioned lots of power. Quick story. We go to the Grand Canyon pretty often from San Diego and usually have range to spare coming into Williams, Arizona, which is a huge elevation climb up into Williams as you get towards the Grand Canyon. And we just blow by all the diesels because we know we've got range to make it. Well, I mean, I wish we had a little bit more range, right? That's the one thing we're all probably in agreement on. But honestly, it really fits our lifestyle. We're not in a hurry when we're on vacation. We typically only charge once per day. So we usually leave home full. We stop for lunch at around the 180 mile mark, have a sit down lunch, walk the dogs, take about an hour, get a full charge. And then we usually try and pick a campground that'll allow us to charge overnight that night. So that's our typical MO. I talked to other Airstream folks. I belong to the Airstream clubs, and we've got a couple other EVs that tow there. But most of the guys are diesel guys, right? And they're always talking about how impactful the charging is. Honestly, some of their diesel stops are 30, 45 minutes. They got to get DEF and they got to get the kids to the bathroom and they got to get snacks. And by the time they're done, they're eating a crappy lunch at a gas station and we're kind of well rested after a nice sit down lunch and walking the dogs.
Heck yeah, such an awesome setup. And the best wheel option, mind you. Yes, we're all Rivians. I'm very biased. I have them in mind.
The only way to go.
100%. And then last but not least, we have Skye. We go all the way back to the end here, who has an eSprinter. I love this. Tell us about that setup.
All right, so this thing comes from the factory with no camping whatsoever. It's a big cargo van. We've taken out the cargo divider behind the two front seats, and we installed bunk beds with IKEA slats, memory foam mattresses. So we've got two twin bunk beds back there, and we've got kind of a workbench. It's all kind of a temporary setup. We've gone through about 3 iterations so far. Microwave, got a big EcoFlow battery setup. One downside of the eSprinter is it doesn't have any AC inverter. Some of these, especially like the Ford and the GM trucks, have like really nice, close to like 7 kilowatt or even 10 kilowatt inverters. With the EcoFlow setup that we've got 8 kilowatt hours of power on the EcoFlow with the extra battery and 4 kilowatts of power. So it's enough to do like an induction stove. And and a microwave and a coffee maker and all that kind of stuff. We can even charge the EcoFlow at a J1772 charging spot, which actually we've done quite a bit. So we got that van back in October, and it was brand new off the lot, about half off. Mercedes was kind enough to be offering 40,000 on the hood, so to speak, on an $80,000 van. And battery wise, it's people may or may not know much about them. It's a lithium iron phosphate pack, and so it charges really flat at about 115 kilowatts. So you show up to a charger, and it doesn't really matter if you show up at like dead or in the middle. It'll just start charging, and then even up to like 80%, you're still getting max charge, like 110 kilowatts. And even up to like 90, you're still getting 90, 95, you're still getting way above like 50 kilowatts. So honestly, it makes for really relaxed charging stops. You can see here the charge ports in the front. So superchargers with short 2-meter cords, no problem, just use an adapter. And it's a pretty big van, but it's narrow. It will fit into even like V3 stall locations. You just need to, it's a huge van, so you just like maneuvering it in parking lots. One of the least fun things about it. Some other things that are kind of kludgy with it is it's a German EV, so none of those guys have camp mode. They're all kind of like anti-leave the car on. So we actually spoof the car with packs of 24 packs of like water bottles on the seat, and the weight and kind of the seat presence monitor thinks the driver's still there. So we actually insulated the back of the van. We've taken it as far as south as Florida, taken it to Vermont skiing, taken it to Colorado skiing this winter, and put about 15,000 miles on it. It's not, probably my least favorite thing about it is if we've got it on the highway and crosswinds. Its limit is about 30, 35 mile an hour crosswinds, and you really don't want to be on the road with that thing. It's 9.5 feet tall. And it's just not a good setup. It's actually got an independent rear suspension, maybe that's like, I don't know if it's worse than the regular diesel 2500 Sprinters, but I actually talked to a guy that had a regular diesel 2500, like a 2025, and he said it sucked in crosswinds too. So I don't know. It's just we've actually driven around the weather. But my favorite thing about it is it's like, I don't really care what amenities are at charging stops. You just stop, plug in, and then like go to the back, and we've got like all the amenities there that you'd need, and just take a nap. So it's been an adventure. It's been fun. But honestly, like the way it rides like a big heavy duty, like a big commercial truck, because it is. And so honestly, like the ride quality, it has no driver assistance. It's like driving a 1990s vehicle almost. It's got blind spot monitors in the mirrors, but it's like, it's all hands on. So anyway, it's an interesting experience. I don't know that I'll keep running this for a really long time. Maybe looking to downsize, like ID Buzz or something like that feels like about the right move. Maybe R1S, but I really like vans. I kind of like the almost stand-up quality. This one you can totally stand up in, which is cool. So I don't know, we'll see, but it's been a fun experience so far, and it's been useful for my wife and I, and we've brought our little doggy with us too. So
Skye, you said Buzz, so I have to jump in. Have you seen the company in Oregon that does the camper conversions? They have the pop-up tent on the top, and then they have a camper build out on the inside. It is quite pricey, but it is top notch.
yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I think I actually sent you a link, or somehow we were talking about the Kia PV5. Like, I would love that little setup. That's a cool setup. Like, I've actually, throughout a Spec, I've gotten a chance to like road trip an ID Buzz, and it's like night and day. It's pretty much just like driving a Tesla on the highway. It's got nice driver assistance. Everything about it just feels very car-like. So, compared to like, it doesn't feel like driving a big van. It feels like driving like a nice compact thing. And it's, you're getting like lots of positive attention driving that thing. So the attention I get driving a big white delivery van is like, oh, hey, go ahead. You're probably delivering my package, or people behind me hate me because they can't see around me. So like, definitely, I'm like the slowest thing on the road. It's speed limited to 74 miles an hour. So you're not going anywhere super fast in that thing.
Yeah, reminds me of I've before I got my camper, I've maintained my parents' Airstream Interstate for going on 5 years now. So it's a 2016 Sprinter chassis, 3500, 24 foot. So pretty much same setup as yours, but
Yeah.
dually in the back, leaf suspension, solid axle, rides terribly. we did a trip. Almost like a cannonball trip because we were running late from Orlando to Texas. And I-10, the highway on I-10 paired with the leaf suspension of that van was like, I'd rather walk. I'd rather walk to Texas than do that again. we're speed limited. We're being thrown back and forth by the wind because it has zero, wind assist. It has doesn't even have lane keep assist. It has a beep when you depart your lane, but that's it. But yeah, I know the Sprinter game all too well.
Yeah, so the electric van has the crosswind assist, which its main purpose seems to just scare the living crap out of us. Like when it turns on, I don't think it actually keeps you in the lane. It just scares you because it's like it jerks the brakes or something, and it's like my wife's like, "What was that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was the crosswind assist." Sorry.
Oh, cool.
I wonder if they retuned that for the electric van, or if they just threw the one from the diesel in there and left it.
My theory on the speed limit on this thing is I don't even know it's a consumption thing. So by the way, the range on that, like if you're chilling, if you're doing like 55, 60 and you're kind of like on B roads or like little divided 2-lane highways and it's like nice weather, you can get like I've gotten as high as 240 miles of real world range. But like say in the winter, the LFP chemistry hates being below freezing, and we did a lot of driving with Nokian studded snow tires on the van, and we were seeing close to like 1.1, 1.2 miles per kilowatt hour, and in that case, you're barely, like real world range is like under 100 miles between chargers, but it's okay. It's got a heat pump, it's got battery preconditioning. The navigation system is great. It's just like if you've watched out of spec videos with Mercedes, like in these races, the MBUX is great. The route planning is amazing. It will consider cost and live availability. It has plug and charge at like Iona, Electrify America. Of course, you got like plug and charge with EVgo or Auto Charge Plus with EVgo. It's a great, like, as far as the electric part goes, it's great. And kind of Tom, what you're saying about this, the Airstream, the Airstream Sprinter 3500 chassis. It's like I'm not so sure I like the Sprinter part of the Sprinter. I like the electric part of the Sprinter, just not. It's definitely an acquired taste. So I don't know.
You're actually getting less efficiency in the cold than we are pulling the Airstream, which is really impressive. I think it's the heater a lot too. Like, because now the heater is blowing. Like we're kind of maxing out the heater, and it's trying to heat up the van, like the whole van. So.
I've seen 1.3, 1.4 in the Lightning in the winter in the wind, so that's not that crazy because it's a lot taller.
Okay. Wait, towing or just
no, just driving. No, towing. I don't see above 1 unless we're going real slow. So with our rig, I think I averaged. Austin actually helped me with a ton of the data, but if I remember correctly, it was like 0.85. What would that be? Miles per kilowatt hour. So range effectively being a little over 100. I've done a stretch from 91 down to 4. Of 130, but that was back mountain roads, real slow, and I was sweating.
we average around. Oh, sorry. We usually are somewhere between 1.5 and like 1.68, but we tow pretty slow, so we usually tow 55, 60. So yeah, but pretty good, pretty decent efficiency for a 6,000 pound camper.
I think we've also learned through different testing in the last year or two that aero makes such a huge difference compared to like weight. So the fact that you have an Airstream definitely is having a positive impact.
Yep, that's what
I would love to get rid of the rooftop air conditioning unit. I would love to get rid of that and put a mini split in.
Well, that'd be really good. Because it's funny you say that, because like Alan, you have a gigantic trailer. I have a little 13-footer, and I get the same exact average. Before I get a little better when I put my tent on the back to kind of smooth out the truck a bit. But I'm averaging, 0.8, 0.9 in that ballpark the entire time, with a much lighter, smaller camper, but the same like nose height. So you have the same aero disadvantage. Whereas the Airstream, now I've always wanted Airstreams forever, but now I really want one because of the efficiency you're seeing, Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah, she pulls really nice too. Like when you guys are talking about crosswinds and stuff, like they don't even bother us really. Honestly, like, I barely even put the weight distribution hitch on.
Wow. Now, when he was saying crosswinds, I was thinking the opposite. Anything, if I was towing my rig, 30 miles an hour would be, we're parking. That would be wild. But it's interesting you say that, Tom, about the aero with you putting the tent on and actually improving your range, because I wanted to get a roof topper for so long, which would kind of have that same effect. But they cost $1 bajillion for some reason. So
yep. I've been scouring Marketplace for almost a year trying to find one that fits my truck. Everyone's selling the 6.5 footers. Lightnings only have the 5.5 footers, and so trying to find one that's not $4,000.
Yeah,
it would help a ton. I've even thinking about going as far as putting that on and then putting one of those hot shot trucker wings on the top. Get the full setup going so I can hopefully get above like maybe 1.3. That's like Goldilocks. That's what I'm going for. But yeah, R1S wise, I've gotten, if I recall, I towed my Coleman to the Florida RV Super Show back in January, and it was, I think I was averaging like 1.1, I believe. Big boxy shape, of course. It was extremely windy though. Like it was so windy they had to put away some of the tents they had outside of the event. I had a sandwich. I blew the sandwich out my hand. It was a really, really windy day, but it was a good test. The Rivian actually almost felt more planted with the tongue weight on the back than it did without any weight on it, which was pretty interesting. But Rivian suspensions, so we all know that.
Rivian requires a weight distribution hitch on the R1T above 5,500 pounds, and our campers about 5,000 dry, about 6,000 loaded, right, with everything in there. And I cannot for the life of me feel a single difference with it fully engaged or not on at all. So I almost prefer not to use it, even though it's supposed to help in the crosswinds. It's just such a pain to set up and unhitch, and it's just easier on the ball. On your Lightnings, are you guys using you're just using the ball, right?
Yeah, I don't need a weight distribution from a little guy yet.
Yeah,
may have an upgrade, maybe, but I know Matt uses one, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
He typically does, yeah, and he's got a similar size trailer to me, and he says he feels a big difference. Honestly, with mine, I don't use it. Part of it's just cost. Good, your weight distribution hitch is another $1,000. I thought about it, but we did a ton of tests last year, and I was like, it just felt so planted. That as long as we weren't trying to run 80 miles an hour, which we don't, we typically would run between 65 and 70, maybe closer to 60 if we're trying to eke the range out. It just felt so planted that I never had any concerns. We even had a windier day, and I was like, okay, this will be kind of the test. Not 30 miles an hour, Skye, but windier than, just a nice summer day. And I never had a worry for a minute. So I just haven't went that route.
Yeah. Maybe I'll bring you my Anderson when we do our camping meetup, and you can test it on the way back.
That'd be fun.
That might be fun.
Yeah.
I'm planning on replacing it before the trip, so I won't have it on the Airstream or the Rivian.
So I don't know what you're planning on replacing it with, but Matt has some awesome suggestions. There's a quick disconnect. I think it's a Kurt brand, and the price wasn't crazy. Like I said, you're running between $600 and $1,000. But the design of it looked to be very advantageous for having to hook and unhook at chargers. So make sure you message him unless you've already got your mind made up. But yeah.
Yeah, probably. I think I'm going to go back to bulletproof. I really like my bulletproof hitch. Good value, made in America, Florida, actually made in Florida. Impossible to break, like impossible. There was a funny, I have a picture of it. There was a Rivian who had just bought a base camp at Airstream, and I had just upgraded to the International, and I thought I needed a weight distribution hitch. Their hitch wouldn't work with the Rivian and the base camp. The base camp was literally too close to their truck, how it sat. So it was going to hit right when they turned. It was just too close. So I gave them my old bulletproof hitch, and the sales rep compensated me on the back end on my deal. So it helped them get a unit sold. But it was funny because it was a Rivian. I was like, oh, let's help them out. Like that would be cool.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny that you're seeing, you live out in California, you're seeing other EVs by campers. I've only ever seen one ever in Ohio in my life, and I've been camping a lot. And it was a Rivian. They were pulling a small camper as well. They were super stoked. They just bought the whole rig and everything, but
Nice.
Not as common over here.
Yeah, even on the East Coast, we travel and camp all in like North Carolina mainly, and Virginia and up and down there. And we are consistently the only and often the first EV, I think, to ever set rubber in any of these campgrounds. And it's pretty cool, actually, the number of people that come up from neighboring sites and are like, hey, is that thing electric? Can you guys like sleep in there? Like, how do you get here? When we were in Destin, Florida for our anniversary a couple years ago, we were talking to our neighbor. And they asked us where we were from, and we said Virginia, and they of course were like, "You guys can drive that thing that far?" I didn't think they could go that far. So it's a cool opportunity to evangelize the EV movement, especially for y'all towing these things. That's got to be
crazy. Yeah, you should have seen when I was at Daytona. I stayed there for a whole week. And it brings me to my last point about how we power our campers. I use Power Onboard with my Lightning. And so I drove from Orlando to Daytona, dropped the trailer off the track, and they have an Iona right outside the track. So I went over there, did a whole deep charge to 100 or like 90 or something, just parked it and went and got lunch and came back, and it was like 98, 99%. And that powered the whole camper. I was stress testing it. So high AC usage, high microwave refrigerator, and I only consumed about 48% for a 6-day trip of just camping out there. And so many people around me, neighbors or just other people from around the road, are like, "Hey, where's the generator, bud? Where is it at?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's my truck." And I show them the cable just like kind of snaking into the back of my bed. And like, "What do you mean? Where is the generator in your bed?" And so I open it. I show them the outlet. I show them the screen. This is how much it's pulling, the Pro Power app on the screen. And they're just like, "Wow, this is amazing. Can you even tow with this thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I towed it here." And they're like, "Whoa, this is crazy." So many people were just so enamored by it. And then on top of that, no generator noise means I can sleep peacefully at night. And that was a huge advantage I had, was that everyone had the big buzzing generators. Around me, there were a couple, but there are none on my plot. So it was very nice and very nice and quiet. But it was like the talk of the town for that little section of the Daytona campgrounds for the race. But yeah, powering it is probably my favorite thing about EV towing, specifically for mine. It's something that I really hope Rivian will do soon, is add 30 amp capacity, because that's what put me off from using my R1S more for my trips, or getting an R1T instead of the Lightning, because the not having to worry about shore power is so cool. I've gone to places that intentionally don't have power. I picked a place with no power at Daytona, same at Jetty Park for the SpaceX launch, and that was actually at Florida Tesla Club event. They invited me out there despite having, I sold my Tesla last year. They're like, hey, you want to come join us for camping? I'm like, sure, heck yeah. And only two people towed there, me and then a Cybertruck owner with either an Airstream or another. It was a very long camper. I can't remember which model it was, but they towed a pretty good size. And everyone's like, oh, you power it? Even the person with the Cybertruck is like, oh, you're powering it with your truck? I'm like, yeah, yours can do that too, by the way. But it's so underrated. You can charge other EV with it, power your camper with it. And I hardly exceed the inverter limits either. Like microwave would kind of get up there a little bit, but it was good. I can probably power a much larger one and not see a huge difference in my use case, usability, whatever the word would be. But,
yeah, I think as much as we would all want a bigger battery for more range driving, if you're just boondocking or hanging out around camp, shoot, running the AC or even running a microwave or some basic appliances uses basically no energy compared to driving. I mean, even in our Y, we have like 65 kilowatt hours of remaining usable capacity. And that's a couple days of running the heat or AC comfortably. And that's like half the size of y'all's batteries.
I know. Just imagine like a Silverado EV, like a month on that thing.
This is kind of like near and dear to my heart, right? If you guys follow me on X, I've talked quite a bit about this topic. It's literally one of my only complaints with the Rivian. It's not only the lack of AC power. The Rivian, just in case anyone watching doesn't know, it has 1,500 watts of output power, so close to 15 amps. But I've personally gone through two of those, burning out those inverters. They're not hardy, so you have to be a little bit cautious with it, and it's not enough to power Airstream. We recently took a trip to Quartzsite, Arizona, and we rented a Cybertruck because we knew we were boondocking. And we talked to Tesla about it. We told them, hey, are we able to take this out of state and use it for our trip? They agreed to let us do it. It was incredible. We boondocked for 3 days with the Cybertruck. We charged it to 100%, just like you, Tom. Got to the site at like 99, 98%. 3 days later, we still left with over 60% battery. And it was cold in the desert at night. We were using the heat pump basically all night. So, to Austin's point, you can run these things for days. I hope Rivian has a Gen 3 R1 vehicle with a larger inverter. It doesn't look like they'll be able to do like a retrofit. Part of the inverter sits under the passenger seat. There's not a lot of room down there, and some of the electronics and the fuses are actually in the high voltage pack. So field upgrade is probably a pipe dream on current Gen 1 or Gen 2 vehicles, but I'm hoping for Gen 3 to have a 240 50 amp would be really nice.
The good news is there are like battery power stations that you can get as a buffer for not a whole lot of money. I mean, $400 or $500 can get you some pretty high output and decent capacity. And you can plug a couple things into that and then have that kind of, constantly trickle charging off your truck. We recently did that for our Y. We just got a little one just to give ourselves a couple outlets for like the Starlink and a laptop charger and, one extra. And that has made a big difference in our ability to power stuff with it, because of course the Y unfortunately does not have any 120 volt outlets natively.
Let me tell you how I lost the second inverter in the Rivian. I had a Blue Eddy AC500 and three B300 batteries in the pickup bed, trickle charging off the Rivian's DC to AC inverter at 9 amps, and I still lost the inverter. Yeah,
man,
crazy.
So one thing I'll mention with the Sprinter, so we put $1,200 of Thinsulate 600M or whatever that it's like inch and a half thick batting in the ceiling and the walls and all the doors of the Sprinter, and that helps a lot with keeping it warm or keeping it cold, depending on what you need. The AC doesn't pull all that much power, maybe a kilowatt, but the heater with the heat pump in the winter, and of course, we're talking like Vermont in the winter, it was 10 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes down to 0, or even I think the coldest we camped in was 10 below Fahrenheit. So, that's anyway, it's cold. And it was pulling sometimes like 5 kilowatts. So in that case, we were definitely charging like daily. And the thing was, we had to keep the interior of the van. Like we were actually visiting some family in Albany, New York at the time. Some family stuff was going on with my mom, with my father-in-law, and so we kind of just had to keep the van warm even when we were kind of car camping in somebody's driveway or whatever, because like actually I got to understand that the EcoFlow that I had didn't have its own onboard battery heater, so I had to keep the EcoFlow above 0 degrees Celsius. So I had to keep it, like in the 5C range. So what is that, about like, I don't know, 40 degrees. And that battery was kind of like sitting on the van floor, that's kind of the one downside of where we did or didn't insulate. We didn't like do anything different to the van floor, which was just the cargo, kind of a honeycomb plastic cargo floor. So that got pretty cold, even though we were heating the whole van. So in that case, we would chew through, like 4 or 5% of the battery, like per hour, like camping in like super cold conditions. And we'd turn the heat down so it wasn't like, super warm in there, but still, like even with the heat set at like 60 degrees, it was, we'd burn through quite a bit of juice. But like in like really temperate, like summer camping or shoulder time camping, yeah, it's similar to what you guys have been talking about, where it'll maybe use a kilowatt. So like, it's 100 kilowatt hour pack. So I know I've camped in it like straight. I just like left the AC running at like 70 degrees like all weekend, and I used like 40% of the pack over like 48 hours. So it's, it's kind of like a no-brainer, even if you're like boondocking or whatever.
Heck yeah. It's super cool to have all these different types of setups. And again, just the viability of people, don't think you can tow or camp with an EV. All various setups, whether it be trick camper, car camping, so many different ways to do it. Van camping, it's possible. If you're thinking about it, it's possible. Well, thank you all for joining us for this call. We're all heading on a trip in a couple months to, meet up with all of our campers and just hang out for a few days. So it's going to be fun. That will hopefully be video as well. But thanks again to all you guys for hopping on, and safe travels to all of you for your other camping trips as well.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together, Tom.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
See
Tom.
you guys.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.